Hello, everyone. Art Gruenberger here with Meet Our Mentors. I'm so excited that you have joined us today, and I'm so excited that I get to talk with Alex and Olmsted. Alex and Sarah, welcome to Meet Our Mentors. How the heck are you guys?
Thank you, thank you. We are very good, Art. We're so excited to be here and talk to you and all of you out in the World Wide Web.
I right now it looks like we've got 9,000. Nope, nine people watching,
No,
but
that's
still
a 0.9.
0.9.
And I think 0.3 of it might be us. So
And maybe my mom.
Oh.
So
all together, we make a complete human.
And isn't that what puppetry is really about?
I think it is. I really do. I think it's been nearly a year since we did a little podcast or a little video thingy where we got to talk about, what it was like going into the pandemic and how you guys were shifting from live stuff to doing more film work and online stuff. And how are you guys doing now that we're slowly crawling out, then crawling back in, then crawling out of pandemic world? How are you guys doing?
We are healthy,
happy, and a third H word. It's going
humorous.
There it is.
It's going well. We totally shifted from live stuff to creating either video content or short puppet films or doing live streaming shows. Most commonly with our show Milo the Magnificent, doing live streaming shows. And that was really fun, and it was really fun to adapt to the screen and find new screen things to do. But then we had a show, was it a month ago in Ithaca?
Yes, it was at the beginning of the month.
So we got to do Milo for the first time on stage again. So that was a whole new adventure about remembering, like, wait, what's the real version of the show?
How different was it to go from doing it online with no audience response to being back in front of the audience? Did it change your timing? Did it change, like, how did you adapt?
That's a great question, because the live show in front of a live crowd is definitely different from a virtual one where we don't get that biofeedback of hearing the audience responding. However, Milo is set pretty much to pretty much
to a soundtrack.
And so the timing remains very consistent, I'd say.
But the context of the timing totally changes with a live crowd.
Yes.
Actually getting to feel out, even if it's the only a difference between a second or two of taking the extra pause to stand there and receive applause without rushing to the next thing, and then knowing, okay, let me take an extra, double step to catch back up to the soundtrack so that things happen on the beat. It was totally like riding a bike, though, getting to get up on stage and do it live again, since it started out as a live, stage show.
And there's
something when you, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh yes. And there's just something so wonderful of hearing that live laughter and us laughing too. Luckily we're under these puppeteer hoods, so we're not interrupting any of the show with our own reactions, but the joy of that, and then seeing a little boy stand right and mimic one of the puppets with his own movements. I mean, that's what really excites me about a live performance, is that kind of interaction and those unexpected moments that you can't plan.
Right.
When you reverse engineered it to do it online versus in person, like what were the pitfalls, and also how did it help you grow the show? Did it change the show at all? Did it allow you to do more with it?
Yeah, I think definitely the biggest pitfall is we live in a very small apartment. We're in our bedroom right now. And I'm not gonna move the curtain, but there's only about 3 feet between this curtain and the desk in which our computer is set up. And then, we can only see width-wise maybe 6 feet, right? So our regular contract writer for Milo says, oh, we need at least 8 feet deep and 16 feet wide. So condensing everything and then deciding, okay, instead of a speaker suitcase in which things come out of and tricks happen on top of, and two separate sort of side tables in which plane spaces can happen. We only have one table and that's it, and then sort of off-camera world. So it was really an exercise in, essentialization and figuring out, okay, well, what's the smallest space you can do it in? And it was really exciting, I think, especially because we know the show so well that for much of the show we're like shoulder to shoulder touching, and we can move around each other just so.
Yeah, and there was definitely a sharper focus because our stage space was so condensed. We really had to look a little bit more clearly at what was really essential and what could be adapted, or what could go to keep the momentum going for the virtual audience. And that in turn informed certain changes we made for our first live show since the pandemic a month ago. When we were putting it back on its feet, we had learned some new things just because we had to look at it in such a radically different way. And we chose to apply that knowledge to the show as it stands now. This is also such a benefit of being a puppeteer. Art, this too, is like when you make the work, you have that liberty to be able to
constantly tweak and change,
polish, let it grow as you grow.
And you can get lazy too with it. And that's what I liked about, there's not a lot I liked about the pandemic, but I did like that it did take me out of some places where I was lazy, and the fact that I had a camera pointing at me and I was looking at a monitor most of the time, it showed me things that I thought had been working for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, that I was like, oh, that move doesn't really look like I thought it would look. And now I get to change it and make it better too.
Absolutely. And we hadn't really done any monitor work. We'd done some video stuff and then, later edited it. But it was our first time really doing live monitor work. So that was really exciting too, about there is a definitive point of view for the audience. And if eye lines don't match up, or if focus is off, or if you're out of frame, it's not a question of whether it works or not. It either does or it doesn't.
Right.
Absolutely. And I love that. Again, there's lots of things I don't like about performing online, but I do love that every kid in my show has a front row seat. And when the puppet looks right at the camera, or if I'm looking right at the camera, I'm looking right at every single person in that audience. And that's something you can't do in a live performance, which is kind of neat. I like it.
Absolutely. And also, the joy of having super small scale puppets that read one way on stage, and another way you change it so the puppet is in Milo's hand and he brings it right up to the camera, and everyone is like, oh, that's a lot of detail, and we get to do subtler movements and it reads so much differently.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about Milo. I'd like to show a little video clip. I think it's a little teaser of Milo. If you have any questions for Alex and Sarah, please type them in the chat. We will get to them if we can. And I'm going to, we have a tech person whose computer crashed, so please pardon my clunky textiness as I'm trying to share my screen here. Here we go. I will share this, and I will share the audio, and here we go. That is the first work that I saw of yours, and I became a crazy super fan after seeing that.
Oh, thank you.
I just love it. How when you're doing it online, Milo's got such a two-dimensional face. Is it hard to get the focus right at the camera? If you tilt it one way or the other, does it throw it that far off, or is it
Not too much. There is a bit of like, getting used to your plane to the center of a cone as you move around. So if I'm moving to the left and right, I actually want to tilt in a little bit as I move. But for the most part, it's not too difficult. One thing I did remember looking at that video is so much of sort of a theme of the live shows when we do it is that we purposefully leave the lights a little brighter so we don't totally disappear in our puppeteer blacks, because we want the audience to see, that there are puppeteers back there, and that it's very obvious when Milo holds up a ball and covers it in his hand that we see Sarah puppeteer take it out, to let people in on like, oh my gosh, wasn't that incredible? And when you're doing it on film, that contrast sort of just neutralizes everything. So it became much more of a traditional dark arts show where we were totally disappearing.
Yeah, like in a live performance, there's the nod to us doing all of the magic practically as puppeteers is so much clearer, and it's sort of like we allowing the audience to laugh along at the gimmick. And as you said, Alex, on the virtual screen, we would disappear much more, much more than otherwise. And
how did you keep it as tongue in cheek then, like sort of nudge to the audience with the video, or do you feel like that just wasn't possible with doing it in video?
I think some things we found that only worked on video that sort of had a similar like wink wink, how this is being done. Like there's a part where there's a bit of a chase sequence and Milo is popping like on and off screen a lot. And so I made like a half scale version of Milo that then I could like with regular Milo exit the frame and then just closer to the camera have him like, pop up and pop from upside down, where it's like, okay, you can't do that. Like, I know what you're doing.
It's not so clever that it's like that you're trying to fool them, right? And that's
right. Yeah.
Fun. Nice. So Milo's great. You guys are working on lots and lots of other projects as well. What other projects do you want to talk about? Because I got to watch some of the videos you sent over in preparation for this, and I just I love them all. What do you guys want to talk about next?
Well, we've been, because of the pandemic, we started making short puppet films and more build tutorials than we'd ever made before. And I feel like even just looking at the videos we made a year ago versus the ones we made last month, there's definitely been growth.
Yeah.
And it's, I just feel like I'm in a state in which there is so much to learn. And maybe, I mean, in some ways, I hope it always feels that way, because that there's sort of a hopeful forward trajectory of that feeling of like, there's more to learn. We're farther to go. Let's try this out. Let's try that out, which is kind of a generative energy that propels us, I think, forward.
We were chosen to be part of the IBEX Heather Henson's Handmade Puppet Dreams mini commission that they did at the sort of middle or start of the pandemic. It was about 12 artists that they gave some grants to help create short puppet films. So during
what were they considering short? Is like 2 minutes, 3 minutes? What was the length of a?
I'm not sure. I think
the max was 8. Yeah, I believe.
I'd say probably like 3 to 8 was the expectation. So that was our step into creating something with a lot more pre-planning and storyboarding and planning shots and budgeting and all that, which was really helpful. And so now that that's done, we're sort of exploring the send it off to festivals part of the life of the piece,
Like
which is a totally different
film
piece.
festivals and that sort of thing is.
Yeah, it's been going to a few, and it's going to Washington West here in DC pretty soon, that we'll get to attend in person. All the other ones that it's been at, we've only gotten to attend virtually because of the pandemic, but this one will be open, so it'll be fun. And then other than that, theaters are opening back up.
Yes.
So we've just started the last few weeks rehearsing with our other theater company, Happenstance Theater, which is a 5-person devised theater company that makes all physical theater work. So we've been getting a show that we started building before the pandemic back on its feet for a spring tour next year. And then also getting ready for a run of our show Brouhaha at Baltimore Theater Project later this
month.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So in the rehearsal room without masks, we've been doing weekly COVID tests just as a precaution. We're all vaccinated. But it feels a little like back to school, familiar and exciting, and also just so good to be rehearsing again.
Yeah.
Nice.
What a feeling.
Oh my gosh.
And if people want to come and see any of the Happenstance shows, they can go to the website below. Is that right?
Yeah, they can
Right.
go there at happenstancetheater.com. There'll be shows in Baltimore that we'll be doing with Happenstance. And then if you sort of stay tuned on that website or find Happenstance Theater on Facebook or Instagram, we'll be posting about sort of the Northeast tour later in the spring with our other show. That's sort of a vaudeville show.
And we'll be in New York in February. So for anyone tuning in who's a little farther north.
Fantastic. So where will you guys be performing in New York?
We'll be performing off Broadway at 59 East 59th.
Oh, that's such a great space. I saw a great puppet show there. It was Bears in Space, I think it was. It was brilliant. And it's they've got so many really fun little black boxes. That's a great space to perform in. Neat.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll be doing our show Barococo with them at that time. Yeah. And that's a really fun show that we got to build with them, because it's sort of Baroque Rococo mashup about these kind of 5 1%ers. There's 6 with our musician Karen. These are like very 1%er oblivious folks that have sequestered themselves into a location for unknown reasons, and then sort of it's slowly implied throughout the show that they may not be there on their own wishes, their own volition. So it's a nice, we built it a couple years ago about sort of the 1% getting their comeuppance, and like every year it's like, oh yeah, this is very appropriate. This is very appropriate. Now this is very appropriate.
Nice.
It's also kind of a similar thing with Brouhaha that we're remounting with them, which is
it's a clown show that takes place during the apocalypse.
Well, at the precipice of the apocalypse. So it's like, oh my gosh, the world is ending. Is this the end? Is this the end? Is this the end? And we've been doing that show. We first did it at Fringe in DC in
2015, I think.
Yeah.
Do I have a picture of that one, you guys?
I'm not sure.
Perhaps not.
Perhaps not.
In which case, maybe we would share.
You certainly could.
Oh my land!
Look at this.
Okay. Let me see if I can share.
All right.
Yeah. Can you see that, or do you have to give permission?
There we go.
There it is.
How's that? Oh,
so
look at this.
That's sort of the Happenstance gang in our Brouhaha garb.
Are the shows? I know the shows are physical comedy. Is there? Is it language free as well, or is there talking or not?
There is talking, and we really take into consideration how much talking there is actually on a show-to-show basis that we make together, because we really want to highlight the physical storytelling primarily, and whatever language is in the show is there to serve the physical narrative. Really, we wish for all shows to be appropriate for all audiences, all ages, and the less language, the better. That being said, we're also one of the both artistic directors are poets. There's a lot of loving of language. We
But it's
pick and choose.
essentialized language.
It's very essentialized.
Yeah.
It's nice that you try to find a real good balance with it, though. That's great.
Right.
So I've noticed that I've worked with, actors that have come in from dance and from Commedia dell'arte, and I've brought them in and trained them to be puppeteers. And I find that because they have a sense of physicality, because they have a sense of movement, they're a lot easier to train than an actor who doesn't have more of a movement background. How did you guys come from a more movement background? How did you guys find puppetry, and how did you get into puppetry?
Do you want to go first?
Surely. I started off as a dancer. My mom was a ballerina, and she was my teacher, a very exciting teacher. And so that was my primary language in terms of physical discipline. But I was definitely a clown. Like, I love the ballet technique, and I love ballet. I was really a goofball at heart, and so tried out theater, and really the evolution of that was physical theater, which is puppetry. I mean, the clowning and puppetry, I think, and we can get into this a little bit more later too, pair so nicely, because both are these very tangible, visual, physical expressions of narrative. And coming from the dance background, that really fed into my excitement for puppetry.
Yeah. I think, to trace it back, I was super into juggling and circus arts when I was a kid. Loved juggling, and so then that made me totally fall in love with buskers, especially when we'd go and visit family like around New Orleans and in the French Quarter and stuff. Before Katrina, there were so many jugglers and buskers, and so that was sort of how I got introduced to like the excitement of performing, as opposed to like a play being something you see on a field trip to get out of school. It was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this person's totally commanding the space. They're doing amazing tricks. They're like being super physical
and engaging.
So I think that always stayed with me through then doing, plays in school and everything. And then we were both working as sort of working actors in the DC area about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we got just hired as actors who would then learn puppetry for a small devised show that was like a Bulgarian folk show with a lot of found object puppetry
called Hopatropa.
Of course, I was going to guess Hopatropa. So weird.
Yeah, exactly. You're familiar with our show. And so that was so fun too, because it was how we met.
Mm-hmm.
It was our introduction to sort of professional puppetry, as in like not just playing around with it and actually doing it for a paying audience. And then also really like the devising process of, I came from a theater background in school, and I totally expected to go be an actor in other shows that had been written and workshopped and everything. And so then to be cast in a show and show up on the first day and like not be given a script, and like the whole time I'm like, yeah, but what do we do? And then we got to like figure it out together and improvise and play.
And look at when we are still doing that same thing, which is incredible. I mean, I was the same. I was a real Shakespeare geek in high school too, and I always wanted to be a Shakespearean actress, like playing all the great roles of the bard, and then having that expectation of a play being written by a playwright, and all of the positions in a theater being designated to different people who were specialized in those particular roles. And here we are. I never would have guessed that I would have ended up in this place where I'm playing a little of every role in everything that we make. And that's also, I think, a really stimulating and fun aspect about being a puppetry artist. is that you are more than one thing. You contain multitudes. And
Could you
get
see
to
going
stretch.
backwards into like going back to doing Shakespearean work? Could you see going back to that, or do you find being able to devise from the ground up more satisfying to you, or would you like a variety of that?
I think you really get spoiled when you devise or when you do clown or when you do puppetry, because then every other show you go into, you're like, yeah, but like, can't we make this a little more playful or connect with the audience a little more directly, or create a little more magic or wonder in the show? And it's a little like, well, no, because like there's a whole team and there's like an estate with this author that you have to run choices by.
It's been my
That being
experience
said,
with video as well. Is I go in and I think, oh, I think it would be better if the character were to say this at this point, and they don't particularly want my input. I've noticed.
right.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely don't like those moments.
Yeah. But that being said, like we still do like regular gig and actor work with some theaters around town. There's a really great children's theater that we like to work with, Imagination Stage. And it's so nice, like, because happenstance, it's only 5 people. We do everything. We build all the props. We help sew all the costumes backstage if they need repairs. We help create the show, all that. With Alex and Olmsted, it's only 2 people. We're writing the grants, we're building the puppets, we're performing, we're doing the mail-in list, everything. It's so relaxing to be cast in a show and show up on the first day, and it's a big circle of people introducing themselves, and it's like, oh, I'm Anne, I'm in payroll, I'll be giving you your check. My name is James, I'm the assistant master electrician. And it's like, all these things that we just don't have to worry about. It's
You're
like,
not having to repair your own props and your own set your
it's
own
so
lights and all the
novel.
rest of it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That being said, if you can repair your own props, or you have experience in puppet building, sometimes that can be really attractive if you're auditioning for a puppet show and be like, hey, just so you know, I could also double as a puppet wrangler, or if something breaks mid-show, I can, fix it in the wings while I'm off.
You're hired.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got the part.
All right.
I guess from my perspective, I see them as 2 different beasts, 2 different elements, and both are stimulating for unique reasons and can teach me different skills. Sure, I do Shakespeare again. I mean, I think doing it again now where I am, now that I'm not a teenager anymore, I would probably even understand what I was doing that much more, just because of my life experience at this point alone. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that would just deepen.
Well, and it's all connected too, like if you take a dance class, it's going to make you better in everything physical that you do. So if you learn mime, you're going to be a better puppeteer.
If you learn an instrument, that's good for your brain.
Yeah, then you'll be a better singer, you'll be a better mover. Like, it's all connected. So it would be fun to go back to just like a totally talky role without sort of necessary physicality, and being able to then choose like very specific physicality to tell that story.
Absolutely. If anyone has questions for Alex and Olmsted, please tap them into the chat and we will get to your questions. I know we want to do take a little look at the other aspect of puppetry, the building aspect, and I've seen some of the crazy crap that you guys have built. It's amazing. Like we were talking about a little you got that's a great question. Let me pop this question up here.
Oh, did somebody write a question? Oh my gosh.
Look at that. It's from Alex and Olmsted. Y'all got Patreon?
Y'all got Patreon.
They must be from the South.
Yeah. It's patreon.com/Alex and Olmsted. Join for as little as $1 a month. Sorry, you were saying, Art.
No, I like, shameless plug. I am a Patreon member of yours, and for all of $1 a month. And I love that I get all of the little blooper reels and videos. Those slay me every time. And I also really like the 3D printing stuff that you guys have done as well.
Thanks. That's
so
something else we got to really explore.
Not just to be funny about the plug, but Patreon is well worth it. Please sign up. You get to see all sorts of silly little videos. They're great.
Oh, thanks.
I do want to talk about the building aspect. And if I were to play the video, could you, and leave the audio off, could you talk us through it a little bit? Would that be
absolutely
an okay way to do it?
Yeah, and feel free to scrub through. Is it the workshop tour?
It is. And
yeah.
I'll let you sort of guide it after I start sharing it here. If you want me to fast forward a bit, sharing without the audio.
Hi, welcome to our workshop.
My name is Alex.
And
Come
I'm
on in.
Olmsted. Come this way.
And that's the sound of a door. And then there's some music playing right now. No, so this is our garage workshop, which we're super, super lucky to have access to. We've been totally able to sort of change the game of what we've been able to build. Because before this, we live in a maybe 450 square foot apartment. So it's like building small stuff in the kitchen with hand tools.
It was like sawdust next to the coffee grounds. Like there was,
yeah,
it's like chicory, only sawdust.
Exactly. Yeah, it's hearty. Ooh, there's some right there. And so then having access to this, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well now if I have room for a table saw, then what can we build for ourselves, or what other commission stuff can I build on for other theaters? Oh, thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
And I think it's so important for I guess anyone just to have a space where they can get messy and leave it messy and come back and continue working. It's just, for me at least, that's such a conducive for the creative experience.
You'll see in this video we have our own.
Was that a Teddy Ruxpin that just went by? I'm sorry.
Was a Teddy Ruxpin.
Well done. And a Floby.
Yeah. It's just all of this looks like a crazy junk thing. I do know where every single thing in there is. Hello, Lars from England. That's our lathe stuff and our welding stuff. We got into welding during the pandemic because a friend gave us an old flux core welder. This is a really fun little hack where you can so you're using the same table for your belt sander and chop saw.
Wow.
And you can do that for
saver.
Any number of tools. Yeah.
Oh boy, this is a magic space for us. And there are some flaws. It's not climate controlled. And so it's very cold in the winter, and it's very hot and buggy in the summer. And if it rains really bad, it floods.
Oh boy.
So, but that being said, we are still able to creatively store enough things off the ground that it's still this viable space. Obviously has electricity, very important for all of the power tools. And there's, as Alex already mentioned this, but just having a space where we can get messy and try new things, that freedom is so liberating.
So you're not bringing it into the house or...
Right. You can leave the mess down there and dust yourself off and then come up for dinner and all that.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, we'll spill out into the driveway with those sawhorses and put some planks on top if we want a little bit more daylight. And yeah. There you have it. Our workshop.
Yeah.
Thank you, workshop.
Yeah. Safety.
Thank you, workshop.
Safety first. And then a little farther in the video, you can see our inside setup where we do our 3D printing, and we have our Cricut Maker die cutter machine, which we make all our shadow puppets on, and all the inside stuff. Oh yeah, there are these little elves that work there.
Yeah, they're these little elves. They're so cute. They're actually really small, like yay high.
Right. but we try and really embrace all the different options for making. It's really easy to kind of get purist about like, oh yeah, you can only work with this, and this joint needs to be this way, and like this is the good material. And like, I hear a lot of people who don't have any experience 3D printing saying like, oh, that's sort of cheating, right? Because you just hit a button and it's made. And it's like, well, you have to learn how to 3D model, and you have to learn how to tune up your printer, and you have to know like if your nozzle head is 0.2 millimeter wide, then how thick are your walls so that it gives them structural strength. And there's so much to it that it's like it's learning a totally different machine. And it's really like the last 5% of actually is like hitting print and then hoping nothing fails.
Absolutely.
Ain't
Brad
that
says,
just
other than
like
climate control, what would you add to your workshop if you could add anything?
Ooh, laser cutter. Absolutely.
Oh, you dropped the bomb.
Man, I want a laser cutter so bad.
So sign up on Patreon and donate the amount.
Help us get
a laser Glowforge.
A Glowforge large bed laser cutter.
Those are pretty cool.
Those are pretty cool. And like the Cricut is great. It's a die cutting machine, and so it's
Can
so
that cut through wood, or is it just paper and plastic?
They say it cuts through like maybe balsa wood or something. If you switch to like the deep point blade, but I think that would take quite a while, and really, you want a laser cutter.
What was that?
I said I want a laser cutter.
I want a laser cutter.
But
Santa, if you're listening.
Exactly, Santa, I've been a very good boy. But then like you always are chasing that that next tool when you're a tool person.
So this is the truth, is that there's that excitement of wanting to learn more and trying all the tools out there. And I think that's also, I really admire that about you, Alex, actually, is that willingness to just dive into a totally new tool or set of skills. The example of the 3D printer, it's not just pushing a button and hitting print. It is so involved learning how to build a 3D model. And the time that goes into that, and the many moments of failure before success, it also goes into that. And Alex has really inspired me in our time together, in that childlike excitement of just diving into something new that you're probably going to be bad at first, but embracing the learning and embracing that whole process. So thanks, hon.
Hey, anytime.
There's a great TED talk called "At 20 Hours to Learn Anything," and it is about that first climb up the hill that's exhausting for the first 20 hours, where you're learning, the bells and whistles of anything new. And I certainly experienced that at the beginning of the pandemic, learning how to live stream and learning how to use OBS and other software and some editing software. And it was exhausting for the first 20 hours. But then all of a sudden, an image would come up upside down, and I would click a couple of buttons. And I'd be like, oh, it took me 10 minutes to solve a problem that would have taken me 3 hours 2 weeks ago. And so it is those first 20 hours are excruciating. So yeah, good for you for diving in and slogging through that time. That's not easy.
It is wild. Having now spent a few years in like Premiere Pro and learning all the shortcuts and proper workflow and stuff for video editing, to then open up a project from when you first got started, and it's just like, oh my god, like why do I have 7 layers? Like why is nothing saved? Why am I referencing everything out of a download folder? Like I don't know where anything is. Wow. But it's so good to remember like how far you've come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. The program is called Meet Our Mentors. Our producer Liz is going to kill me if I don't ask about your mentors.
Oh boy!
So that
Who
sounds like
were
we're in a
your
big position
mentors?
of
And then Jamie, I've
power
got a
over
question
you.
from you. I will answer. I will get to your question before we close out, I promise. So hang tight, Jamie. Who were your mentors?
Hmm.
All right.
I would say, thinking about mentor in the way I understand it, where it's not just somebody who you admire or inspires you, but really that you have a close relationship with, and that has like a vested interest in your career and your ongoing. We mentioned Happenstance before, and definitely the co-artistic directors of that, Mark Jaster and Sabrina Mendel, I feel like are big mentors for us. We've been working with them for almost 10 years now. You can see them. They officiated our wedding even. We're sort of all that close. And it's been so important to our career to work with them and to work with them for so long, and sort of have them as collaborators and peers and mentors. I feel like.
Yes. We learned so much just in the rehearsal room, and it's an education that's ongoing, and there is this investment that we've all made as a company to stick together through thick and thin, and to continue making and learning from one another. And yes, this is us all in the air. Sabrina is in the black hat with the two yellow ruffles, and Mark, the other co-artistic director,
is on the ground. So Mark and Sabrina both have very strong backgrounds in theatrical clown and clowning, and sort of under the pedagogy of Jacques Lecoq. And Mark studied with
Etienne Decroux
in
Paris,
and served as a teaching assistant with Marcel Marceau. So his understanding of mime and physical vocabulary is just so rich, that like every show we work on with them, it's like a masterclass in itself.
So as you're doing stuff with Happenstance and as you're doing your own work, do you have certain things that are touchstones from your mentorship that you're like, okay, I've got to be thinking about this as we're doing this part of the show? Or like, what are do you have some keys that you've carried from Happenstance and from the folks that you've met there?
Definitely. I think in the realm of spatial awareness, what's really useful for puppetry is focus. Very, very simple, but so effective. We've learned as a 5-person clown company where we all draw a lot of attention for different reasons, being these radically different characters with often a lot of makeup or a very exciting costume, and learning how to all throw the focus to the right person at the right time, so that the story doesn't get lost among a bunch of people doing things all at once. And that's the same with puppetry, really highlighting.
So when you're saying focus, it's not about what the puppet is focusing on and eye focus. It's about how can we organize ourselves and have stillness in ourselves so that we make the audience look at what we want to look at on stage without somebody having to step down and talk directly to them.
Like an audience, like an author, or I'm sorry, an artist would do with light or with lines pointing to a certain part of the painting, that sort of thing, that sort of idea of the composition on stage. And
just making really, really clear. We talk about split focus a lot, where, if somebody's having too big of a reaction on the other side, or even if they're doing something practical, like, oh yeah, I need to get this thing out of my pocket so that I can do my bit next. Like, just take an extra second, let it be still. Stillness is so important in all the work we do with Happenstance.
And stillness is so important in puppetry. You can't just have the puppet moving constantly without a breath, without a moment for it to. I'd say it's when you are still with a puppet, you're offering it a depth of experience, and it's all sort of, it is definitely wrapped into breath and movement, because stillness on its own, you can't have a lifeless puppet. But we found that the work with happenstance informs that absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like every time we do a show with happenstance, we learn about how to become better puppeteers, because I think there's also this sense of our body is the puppet with happenstance. So we are having to move in these very extreme ways, or do whole mimetic scenes where there are no objects. We are creating the objects in space with our bodies. And then that experience alone, we translate directly into how we move the puppet, and how the puppet is filling the space and moving through the space. I'd say, unless you want to jump in on that thought.
No,
I think your films and your live performances, like that, it's very clear. It's there's never 16 places to look at once. It's always a beautiful image and then a focal point within that image. So that really reads well in your work. I can see how that's something that you use a lot. That's really neat.
Oh, good.
What else?
I think another big takeaway from our years working with happenstance that we carry over to Alex and Olmsted is the relationship with the audience. Very rarely do we, as ourselves or with happenstance, create anything that's very fourth wall, where we're sort of doing this act where we're ignoring the audience, even if we're not, directly addressing the audience. There always needs to be an understanding of their presence in the room, and something that you send out that then they receive, and then that comes back to you, and it's very much sort of that flow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's also part of why we chose live theater, is because there's that direct community engagement about that is centered around being in the room together. And in my mind, we make the show together with the audience. It doesn't exist with just the players on stage moving in the space. It exists because the audience is there. They are our scene partners. And what I find, not that fourth wall theater can't be really interesting and beautiful and thought-provoking, but there's nothing like being in the room when the people performing acknowledge that, like, really incorporate your presence into the show and acknowledge you there. You feel there's a shift in the energy. There's an opening, I think, of the heart. I mean, I know that feeling when I'm in the audience and that happens, and things get a little bit more exciting. It's a very powerful thing. And I also feel like we're acknowledging the reality of the situation, which is that we are in a room together. We are creating this thing.
And it is a relationship, isn't it? I mean, I went and saw a concert a couple of nights ago, and it was a gigantic arena concert, and the band was great. But what was interesting to me is to see the love of the audience for the music, and the musicians on stage responding to that, and that synergy of back and forthness that's happening. That's magical. There's nothing like that. I just love that.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to work with a group in Baltimore, Submersive Productions, on a show that we helped devise too, called H.T. Darling's Incredible Museum, which was an immersive show that took place at the historic Peel Museum in Baltimore. That, I think, the relationship with the audience was incredibly integral, because it wasn't one of those immersive shows where the audience are these like silent watchers sneaking around and the performers ignore them. It's totally set up like the opening night of a museum, in which you can talk directly to the cast, and the cast is supposed to engage with them as museum patrons.
How fun.
And that was just so satisfying, because you really could sometimes have a night where only one audience member followed you down to this one room when you were doing a scene. So it was like you and one other person like in a dark room sorting eggs and like having a conversation. I'm
like you do.
and it's
Yeah, as you sort eggs.
yeah, and it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel anything like, standing in front and reciting.
Right. I mean, in that point, you're creating something with this person, and you're allowing them the agency to become a storyteller, just as well as you. And that's an engagement that I feel is really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's what's so exciting too about like Kaha Lambe Lambe getting more popular. I feel like in the last few years, where it really is like puppet theater for one, and getting to like look in the box and it's just you and the other person together.
Absolutely. So, puppet mentors, have you had some of those? I know you've done a little bit of work with Bread and Puppet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I did an apprenticeship at Bread and Puppet in 2012, and I would count Peter and Elka. Yes, this is a picture of me and Peter Schumann in 2012, that year of my apprenticeship. Peter and Elka Schumann, his wife, who started Bread and Puppet Theater together and run the company. Elka passed away recently, but I see them as very influential artists. They're I think I may actually need to think about it a little bit before I continue. Well, Alex had the experience of being there as well. There's a very profound can-do attitude that takes place there. So many things need to get done on a daily basis, whether it's chores or rehearsals, and nothing is more important than the other. Like, we need to clean up after breakfast just as much as we need to rehearse the evening show, and not having to justify the time we took to invest in the art in the rehearsals. It was really a wonderful experience. To be in such a large community that is treating it that way. And also a sense of, if you set your mind to it, you can do it. There were many times when there'd be a call for volunteers to do things that I had never done before. And I raised my hand, and lo and behold, I was learning how to do something that I'd never done. And there was no question of, we need someone who has an expertise in chopping wood, or whatever the case might be, paper macheing in the clay pit, or painting these signs, and printing in the print shop. Not having done any of those things, and yet here we are. I have two hands, I have 2 feet, and I really appreciate that about the community. There is not only the unique and powerful art that they make, but how encouraging they are to all who join.
Yeah, it's not like there's a hierarchy where it's like, oh yeah, these are the puppeteers, they're on stage, they get all the applause, and then there are the cooks, and there are the gardeners, and there are the thing. It's like, no, everybody has to cook, everybody has to garden, anybody can show up and be in the show. Like, puppetry isn't only reserved for the people who have dedicated their lives to it. If any community member shows up on a Saturday circus like an hour before and has their white clothes on, they can sort of get put in an act, and they can get up there and do it. And it's more about getting the community together and creating this thing and then being able to eat bread together afterwards than it is like, oh, let's get a core group of 3 people to do a very like polished, tight show. Like, it's fun to get messy with them.
Right. And every show is free. No one is turned away for lack of funds. They pass the hat at the end, and after every show they serve bread, because the philosophy is that art is as essential as bread to life. And you eat the art nourishes you just like you eat the bread. And that's the kind of philosophy that I would like to live by.
Yeah.
Neat. Has that experience, that internship, allowed you to sort of I mean, you guys dive into so many new things in your work and so many new ways to build things. Is that, I mean, it seems like that is a good fit for you, that level of courage to like not try to aim your expertise, but say, what do I want to create? And let's dive in and do it.
Yes, yes. I love that you use the word courage too, Art, because boy, doesn't it take courage. We have to, I mean, and you know this so well too. Just being an artist and puppeteer requires that. That Bread and Puppet has this wonderful print of a boot, and growing out of the boot is a sprig of wheat, and underneath the print is the word courage. It's like out of all of our boots can grow nourishing sprigs of wheat from which we may bake the bread of life.
I'm totally trying, especially because I've been making sourdough for the last 16 months since the pandemic started. And even every time I give away a loaf of sourdough, it feels such a wholesome thing to do. But I've also got the artist in me going, God, I hope they like it. God, I hope they like it. God, I hope they like it.
Right. Oh
so it's even an act of courage to give away a damn loaf of bread, I think.
Isn't that something? But look, Art, you gave it away.
Damn straight I did.
You didn't get in your way by thinking, well, maybe it's not good enough, or maybe they won't like it. You followed your courage and you gave them that loaf of sourdough and they liked it.
I'm patting myself on the back right now.
Good job.
We're patting you on the back too.
Yeah. I love it. I'll take them. So we got a question from Jamie here, and I'm excited to hear about this answer as well. What are you guys working on? What's the next project that you guys are going to be producing?
Oh my gosh. There are like 10 different projects, like all plates spinning at the same time. We're working on Marooned, a space comedy.
Yes.
That's sort of about an astronaut who crash lands on an uncharted planet and sort of has to use her wits about her to get back home, wherever that may be or whatever that may mean.
I saw a little video clip, like a teaser of that. Can people see that at your website? Because that's well worth watching. I really enjoyed seeing
yes, that
those
should be
puppets.
Yeah, it should be on our website under Marooned.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And that's another thing where we were working on it before the pandemic, and even though it's a comedy, it's a lot more kind of meditative than like Milo, which is so upbeat.
And it's a totally different rhythm, right?
Well, it's a space comedy, right?
Exactly. It's a space comedy.
That's right. And whereas Milo it's very crisp turns of the hand and tricks that are presented. Even when they go wrong, there's this peppy kind of quality. In space, things move very differently. Yeah. So there's still humor, but the human body in space moves with a kind of resistance that's very different than that on Earth.
Right. And, a big theme of the show is like isolation and loneliness. And then the pandemic hit, and it's like, oh my God, everyone has experienced isolation and loneliness over the last year and a half. So it's going to be interesting moving forward to see what context this show has in people's lives when they view it, having firsthand experienced that.
Do you guys mind if I just share like 45 seconds of the teaser? Because
sure.
I watched it and I just fell in love with the puppets and just the overall look. So let me share this with everyone as well. I think everyone will enjoy it too. This is a clip from Marooned, a space comedy by Alex and Olmsted.
Shit, I would
I'm really excited to see that. I mean, I don't care if anyone else is. I can't wait to see that. That's
We
really
care if
fun.
other people are. But
Was there a lot of 3D printing that you used to build the little two-legged robot with the blink mechanism, or was that
zero
practical?
3D printing. That was actually before we got the 3D printer. So that was
Really?
all done by hand. Yeah. The sort of main body of Ada, the autonomous task assistant, was like a big plastic globe that then like the sides were cut off and inverted and stuck in, and then a hole cut out of the front for the sort of eye, and then sort of figuring out how to add the blink mech. But it was so fun to work on.
And the legs are actually foam.
Yeah, foam core.
Fantastic.
It's so
Rob
much
says,
fun.
love the robot. He's an incredible builder.
Oh.
I'm a super fan of most everything that Rob builds, and that's a heck of a compliment from Rob.
Man,
Yeah.
we love Rob's stuff. It's so cool to see the work on Pip and Squeak go viral too, with our friend Matt McGee that they were working on.
Yeah.
Really cool project.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, you guys, I could talk to you all day long, but we've been talking for an hour and it's time to wrap things up. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Listen, if you guys at home, if you have anyone that you would like to see on Meet Our Mentors to hear about how they were influenced by the people in their lives to become the artists that they are, please type it in the chat. We are taking it under advisement right now. We'd love to hear from you. We've got a list of about 8 or 9 people that we are currently lining up for the next 8 or 9 episodes of Meet Our Mentor. And we hope you all join us there. Do you guys have anything you want to plug before we go away? Obviously, sign up for Patreon for Alex and Olmsted. You can go to their website. It's right down there. Sign up for Patreon for as little as $1 a month.
That's right. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Alex and Olmsted, where we'll upload show trailers like the one you just saw. But we've also been uploading a lot of puppetry building tutorials, either component tutorials or behind the scenes look at puppets that we've been working on, and all of that to stay in touch.
It really does make a difference when people subscribe to your YouTube channel and when they like your videos too. I can't say that enough. I didn't really give that much of a thought before pandemic, and then realized I can do so much more with more subscribers. So please make sure you subscribe both to Puppeteers of America YouTube page and to Alex and Olmsted as well. Alex and Olmsted, Alex and Sarah, you guys are fantastic. I love hanging out with you. I love getting to talk about this stuff with you. It's just magical. Thanks so much, you guys.
I love hanging out with you too, Art. Anytime.
All
Thanks
right.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.